Good morning, class. Today we are going to learn respiration in humans. Now, let us see what is meant by respiration and breathing. Is there any difference? Yes. Breathing is a physical process in which we intake oxygen and release out carbon dioxide. But respiration, it is a biochemical process in which why we intake only oxygen? Because glucose is breakdown into carbon dioxide, water and energy in the presence of oxygen. Oxygen, glucose is oxidized only in the presence of oxygen and the final products are carbon dioxide, water and energy. As carbon dioxide is not required, the body expelled it out. That is why we intake only oxygen and given out carbon dioxide. Now I'll tell you the definition of respiration. Respiration is one of the biochemical process takes place in our cell or eukaryotic cell or aerobes. It is a process by which a living being utilizes the food to get energy. Why we eat food? Why we utilize food? To get energy. How do we get energy? When the food, the simplest form of food after digestion, the simplest form of food is glucose. This glucose in the presence of oxygen break down into carbon dioxide, water and energy. What is the site of respiration? Respiration takes place in mitochondria. As mitochondria is present in, yes, eukaryotes, respiration takes place both in prokaryotes and eukaryotes. But in eukaryotes, respiration takes place in mitochondria. But in case of prokaryotes, mitochondria membrane-bound organelle is absent. That is why respiration takes place in cytoplasm itself. Once respiration takes place, it releases out carbon dioxide along with water and energy. This energy is stored in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Just imagine in our cytoplasm, cell cytoplasm, ADP and inorganic phosphate, adenosine diphosphate and inorganic phosphate already present in the cytoplasm. When this ADP and inorganic phosphate combine together, this combination requires energy. Combined together produces ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Now, energy is stored in bonds, ATP. When your body needs energy, again ATP enters into reversible process. Further, it is break down into ADP and inorganic phosphate and releases out energy. So, this is reversible process. When energy is in excess, it is stored in the form of ATP. When energy is required by your body, then ATP is break down into ADP and inorganic phosphate and release energy. What are the steps of respiration? The first step is breakdown of glucose. Glucose is a 6-carbon compound. I will tell you how it is. What is the molecular formula of glucose? C6H12O6. I repeat, note down C6H12O6. How many carbon atoms are there? 6. That is why the glucose is called 6-carbon compound. Once glucose is taken up by the cell, the first step, the first breakdown takes place in cytoplasm. The process is also called glycolysis, glucose, lysis, breakdown. So 6-carbon compound glucose is breakdown into 3-carbon compound, that is pyruvic acid or pyruvate. Pyruvate is a 3-carbon compound. That is why once glucose molecule is broken down, it forms 2 pyruvic acid molecules, 2 3-carbon compounds. Now, the further step takes place. Pyruvic acid now enters into mitochondria. The next step is pyruvic acid. Once pyruvic acid is formed in the cytoplasm, the pyruvic acid now enters into mitochondria. The fate of pyruvic acid further depends upon the presence or absence of oxygen. If oxygen is available, it enters into aerobic respiration. If oxygen is not available, if oxygen is lacking, then it enters into anaerobic respiration. Now, respiration involves gaseous exchange. Definitely, of course, respiration requires gases. Which gases? Yes, oxygen. Why we intake oxygen? To oxidize glucose. So, gaseous exchange, intake of oxygen from the atmosphere and release out of carbon dioxide from the body into the atmosphere is nothing but breathing. Now, types of respiration. As I told you already, there are two modes or types of respiration. One is aerobic respiration, another one anaerobic respiration. If oxygen is available for the breakdown of pyruvic acid, then the process is called aerobic respiration. If oxygen is not available, then pyruvic acid enters into anaerobic respiration. First, let us see what is meant by aerobic respiration. This type of respiration happens in the presence of, yes, oxygen. Pyruvic acid is converted into carbon dioxide and water. Energy is released at the end of this process. So, now I will ask you one question. Just give answer by yourself. What is the site of aerobic respiration? Where pyruvic acid is further breakdown into carbon dioxide, water and energy. What is the answer? Yes, it's mitochondria. As we are studying respiration in humans, human is a eukaryote. In eukaryote, mitochondria is present. That is why pyruvic acid from the cytoplasm enters into mitochondria. If oxygen is available, glucose is completely breakdown into, that is pyruvic acid is completely breakdown into carbon dioxide, water and energy. Complete oxidation of glucose or pyruvic acid takes place in the presence of oxygen. But in case of prokaryotes, mitochondria is absent. That is why glycolysis, the first step, as well as the fate of pyruvic acid, next the further breakdown of pyruvic acid takes place in the cytoplasm itself. Now, once pyruvic acid enters into the mitochondria for the further breakdown, whatever the steps comes after, those steps, the process is called Krebs cycle. Glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. Krebs cycle takes place in mitochondria. What is Krebs cycle? Pyruvic acid is converted into carbon dioxide, water and energy. This process is called Krebs cycle. That is particular word. Now, anaerobic respiration. As you know, what is anaerobic respiration? Once pyruvic acid enters into mitochondria, if oxygen is not available, if oxygen supply is too less, what will happen? The process enters into, the type of the process is anaerobic respiration. In this type of respiration, as it happens in the absence of oxygen, pyruvic acid is incompletely breakdown into ethyl alcohol or lactic acid. Either ethyl alcohol or lactic acid, depends upon the organism, not both. I will tell you how it is. Ethyl alcohol is usually formed in case of anaerobic respiration in microbes. So ethyl alcohol production takes place in microbes. Example, yeast or bacteria. This process is also called fermentation. You might have heard the word beer, wine, whiskey. Yes, all these drinks, hot drinks, will get through fermentation, through this process. What is that process? Anaerobic respiration. The breakdown of glucose in the absence of oxygen in the body of bacteria and yeast. What are the final products? Yes, that is ethyl alcohol, or commonly called ethanol. C2H5OH. Note down, C2H5OH, ethanol or ethyl alcohol. Now, lactic acid. I told you already, during anaerobic respiration, the pyruvic acid, either it may yield ethyl alcohol or lactic acid. In which type of organisms ethyl alcohol is produced? Bacteria, that is microbe, bacteria and fungi. What about lactic acid? Lactic acid production takes place in plants and humans or animals. I will tell you how it is. In humans, if you run faster, if you do more physical exercises, what will happen? The supply of oxygen will be less. So the demand of oxygen will be more for further breakdown of pyruvic acid. If oxygen is not available, pyruvic acid anaerobically or partially break down and produces lactic acid. Example, it takes place in muscle cells of humans and seeds of plants. That is why the seeds are somehow it is different in taste, sour in taste. That sourness is due to lactic acid. Now, this is the chemical reaction. The breakdown of glucose takes place by various pathways. These are the three pathways in which glucose, the 6-carbon compound, see here, glucose, 6-carbon molecule in the cytoplasm break down into 2 pyruvate molecules or pyruvic acid molecules. Now, pyruvate further depends upon, the fate of pyruvate depends upon the presence or absence of oxygen. If the oxygen is absent, example in case of yeast, the end product is ethanol. Not only ethanol, it also releases carbon dioxide and energy. But the energy production compared to aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration yields very less energy. Say for example, I'll tell you, in case of aerobic respiration, the total number of ATP molecules, one glucose molecule yields 38 ATP molecules. But in case of anaerobic respiration, it yields one glucose molecule yields only 2 ATP molecules. Lot of energy difference. Pyruvate. Again, lack of oxygen. There is a difference between absence and lack. Lack of oxygen in human muscle cells. The pyruvate is breakdown, incompletely breakdown or partially breakdown into lactic acid and energy. Presence of oxygen in mitochondria completely break down into carbon dioxide, water and energy. Aerobic respiration takes place in healthy cells, that is human cells. If oxygen is available, glucose is completely break down into carbon dioxide, water and energy. Anaerobic respiration, there are two end products, ethyl alcohol and lactic acid, in two different organisms. Ethyl alcohol production takes place in yeast bacteria and also in the seeds of plant. Lactic acid production takes place in human muscle cells in the lack of oxygen or partial availability of oxygen. This is important. This diagram is very, very important. The three pathways of glucose. Practice well. Now, let us see what are the differences between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Very, very important question. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. In aerobic respiration, complete oxidation of glucose takes place. In case of anaerobic respiration, the glucose molecule is partially oxidized or incompletely oxidized. Next, the end products of aerobic respiration are carbon dioxide and water. Here, end products are either ethyl alcohol or lactic acid and carbon dioxide. It depends upon organism. Lot of energy is liberated. How many ATP molecules? One glucose molecule yields 38 ATP molecules. But in case of anaerobic respiration, only 2 ATP molecules are produced or released by one glucose molecule. Aerobic respiration occurs in plants and animal cells, but in case of anaerobic respiration occurs in many anaerobic bacteria and human muscle cells, and also in plant seeds. This is a chemical equation of aerobic respiration. C6H12O6. Glucose, one glucose molecule requires how many oxygen molecules? 6 oxygen molecules. Release out 6 carbon dioxide molecules, 6 water molecules and 686 kilocalories of energy. If you convert this 686 kilocalories of energy into ATP molecules, the total number of ATP molecules will be 38. In case of anaerobic respiration, one glucose molecule is into 2 ethyl alcohol, 2 carbon dioxide and less amount of energy, that is 2 ATP. Pain in leg muscles while running. Why? If you run faster, an athlete, if he runs faster, he may get pain in his muscle. Why? What is the reason? I told you already the answer. When someone runs too fast, he may experience throbbing pain in the leg muscle. This happens because of anaerobic respiration takes place in the muscle. Oxygen supply is very less. If oxygen supply is less, pyruvic acid enters into anaerobic respiration and forms, what is the end product? Lactic acid. If lactic acid accumulates more in muscle cells, it gives cramp sensation, muscle cramps. During running, the energy demand from the muscle cell increases. This is compensated by anaerobic respiration and lactic acid is formed in this process. The deposition of lactic acid causes pain in the leg muscles. The pain subsides after taking rest for some time. If you take rest, definitely you can supply more oxygen. Now, let us see exchange of gases. You know already which gases we exchange usually during aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. For aerobic respiration, organisms needs continuous supply of oxygen and carbon dioxide produced during this process needs to be removed out from the body. Different organisms use different methods for the intake of oxygen and expulsion of carbon dioxide. How you inhale oxygen and release out carbon dioxide? Through your nose, by using your nose and lungs. What about lower organisms and plants? Lower organisms, unicellular organisms, plants exchange their gases by using the process diffusion. Keep it in mind, diffusion. What is diffusion? It's a movement of gaseous molecules from the region of higher concentration towards the region of lower concentration. Say for example, plants intake during respiration, plants intake oxygen and given out carbon dioxide. Why only oxygen enters inside? Because the concentration of oxygen is more in atmosphere compared to plant body. So the oxygen molecules move from atmosphere to plant body. This process is nothing but diffusion, the movement of gaseous molecules from the region of higher concentration towards the lower concentration. Now, what about fishes? Gills are the respiratory organs for fishes, uses dissolved oxygen and breathing rate is faster. You know why fishes breathe very fast? Because fishes require only dissolved oxygen. The oxygen should be dissolved in the water. So, as the atmospheric oxygen concentration is more and dissolved oxygen concentration is less, they require more, the breathing rate should be more. Then only the fishes can supply oxygen to its body. Terrestrial animals use lungs for breathing and breathing rate is slow. Why we breathe slow? Enough oxygen is there in the environment, so the breathing rate is slow. Now, let us study the structure of human respiratory system. This is the picture of human respiratory system. The human respiratory system is composed of a pair of lungs. These are attached to a system of tubes which open on the outside through the nostrils. You can see the picture, nostrils. The main structures of human respiratory system are a pair of nostrils. Can you see the picture? Nostril cavity. Nostril cavity consists of two openings. The nose, at the end of nose, you can see two openings called nostrils which converge to form a nasal passage. The inner lining of this nostril is lined by hairs and remains wet due to mucus secretion. Mucus is nothing but jelly or gummy-like substance. What is the use of this mucus? The mucus and the hair help in filtering the dust particles out from the inhaled air. During inhalation, the air may consist of microbes or dust particles. These dust particles and microbes are filtered by using hair lining as well as mucus of nostrils or nose. Further, the air is warmed up when it enters the nasal passage. After nasal passage, you can see pharynx. This is pharynx. It is a common passage of food as well as air. Passage, it is a tube-like structure which continues after the nasal passage. Next, larynx. This is larynx. It is also called voice box. Larynx, this part comes after the pharynx. This is also called voice box. Next, trachea. See the picture. After pharynx, larynx. After larynx, trachea. Can you see C-shaped cartilages? C-shaped cartilages? Yes. Trachea, this is composed of rings of cartilage which prevent the collapse of trachea in the absence of air. What is cartilage? It is just like a soft bone, elastic bone. You can see these cartilages at the tip of your nose, ears. Soft bone, which is very elastic in nature. Next, trachea is continued into bronchi. The next picture. Can you see the picture? After trachea, you can see bronchus or bronchi. A pair of bronchi. Bronchus is singular, bronchi plural word. A pair of bronchi comes out from the trachea with one bronchus going to each lung. This is one bronchi. This is one bronchi. There are two bronchi. Next, bronchioles. Bronchi further divided into, just like a tree branch, they are divided into primary, secondary and tertiary bronchioles. A bronchus divides into branches and sub-branches inside the lung called bronchioles. At the end of each bronchiole, can you see balloon-shaped structures at the end? These are called alveoli, also called air sacs. These are air sacs at the end of bronchioles. It's a site of exchange of gases. As I told you already, the alveolus is composed of, these are balloon-shaped structures, very thin membrane, composed of very thin membrane, and is the place where blood capillaries open. What is the use of blood capillary? Actually, blood capillaries brings unwanted gas like carbon dioxide and gives it towards alveoli and receives oxygen from the alveoli. So, alveoli is a place where exchange of gases takes place. This is alveolus where the oxygen mixes with blood and carbon dioxide exits from the blood. The exchange of gases in alveoli takes place due to the pressure differential. So only due to air pressure difference, always oxygen gets inside or carbon dioxide expelled out. This is the passage of air through the respiratory system in human beings. The picture depicts exchange of gases. See the picture? A person is inhaling air through the nostrils and also through the mouth, but we should inhale only air through the nose but not through the mouth. May I know the answer? Why? I repeat the question. One should inhale air through the nose but not through the mouth. Why? Any answers? Just cross-check your answer. Now I'm going to say the answer. Nose, the nasal passage consists of hair-like structures, hairs, as well as mucus, which entraps bacteria, dust particles. Cilia also entraps bacteria and dust particles and also warms up the air. But if you intake oxygen or air through your mouth, it cannot entrap any dust particles or germs. You may get infection. So, we should inhale air or we should intake air through the nose but not through the mouth. Once we intake air through the nose, the air enters via the nose or mouth to the pharynx. Pharynx is a common passage of food and air. And once air enters into the pharynx, later it enters into the larynx, that is voice box. Here, secondary filtration takes place. Actually, it is not a primary filtration. It's a secondary filtration. First filtration takes place in nose. And after that, air enters into trachea to Here further filtration done, and now the air enters into left and right bronchi. The branches of bronchi, how many branches are there? Three: primary, secondary and tertiary bronchioles. Finally, the air enters into alveoli. Here, the blood capillaries surrounding the alveoli receives oxygen from the alveoli and gives carbon dioxide to it. That is why, while inhaling, alveoli gives oxygen to the blood capillaries and immediately you expelled air, give out air in which the carbon dioxide concentration will be more. Diffusion or exchange of gases takes place between the blood capillaries and alveoli. Answer the questions. Define respiration. What is the fate of pyruvic acid in the presence and absence of oxygen in a cell? Differentiate between aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Important question. Draw a neat labeled diagram of human respiratory system. Important question. Name any two organisms in which anaerobic respiration takes place. Define fermentation. Write the flowchart of various paths of glucose breakdown. Describe the structure of human respiratory system. Why aquatic animals breathe faster compared to terrestrial animals. Name the process through which plants, unicellular animals and lower animals exchange gases with environment. Thank you.